Welcome to the Vault Excel. Thank you for joining me. Hope you all are having a wonderful Friday and have a peaceful weekend. As I have said in discussing this case, that as of late, when I think I can't be more annoyed and irritated and baffled by the information that has come out pertaining to leaks in the case, alleged assertions of who saw what, who was where in the house in relations to the bodies. We now have this utter disregard for the children and their parents, because as most of you know, a few of the parents have had previous run-ins with the law, and Ms. Taylor has represented those said parents. I will bring you commentary pertaining to the fact that Ms. Taylor is back on this case. She has been cleared by a judge to represent Brian C. Kohberger. How? I do not know. I do not know if this is even legal, if they are bending the rules at some point, some type of way, but this is an utter disregard to the defendants. The fact that the defendants are parents of these deceased kids, a manipulation of the law, and also disregard for the kids who are no longer alive. I will be bringing you a few sources to dissect all the information, because I wanted to make sure I brought everything that clarified what is happening in Moscow, Idaho, pertaining to this case. News Nation is source number one. Thank you.
But tonight I'm coming back with some more exclusive material on the Idaho murder, so I hope you will stay through the next ensuing moments. I think this is one of the most important issues that has come across the radar in the Idaho murder case, because I like criminal procedure. I've been, kind of steeped in it for a long time, and I cannot stand when something gets overturned on appeal. I can't stand it because sometimes it's so preventable, right? Especially if you know in advance and you do something about it. And I kind of see something percolating here. The experts know better, and they're having a field day arguing online about this. And so I know it's a really important issue. It has to do with conflict of interest. I know we've talked about it before, but I have some breaking news on this tonight. So the issue has been Brian Kohberger's public defender, Ann Taylor, right? She showed up and then walked into court with him the very first time. She's a very accomplished attorney. Holy cow. She's got some real scores under her belt, right? So she's good. She's also a leader in the public defender's office. So looked like it was a pretty good match, especially for a case that was important as this. Could be a death penalty case. I'll repeat, could be a death penalty case. You have to have a star, but you have to have a clean star. Someone who has no conflicts in her past representations. And along came the fact that she had indeed represented the mother of Kara Kernodle, one of the alleged victims of Brian Kohberger, her client, and then two other parents of the victims. Right? So that all of a sudden, it's like, it seems so clear. Well, you cannot have represented the children of parents who are now going to be in that courtroom watching you defend their child's alleged killer. You can't. And yet there's some wiggle room. But with all of the conflagration that happened, it turns out now there has been a meeting. And we have sources close to the prosecution who have told us that Ann Taylor has had a meeting with the judge on this exact issue. The conflict of interest issue. Private meeting, behind closed doors, discussing all of the issues. Likely she was called in to lay out, tell me everything you did with client A, client B, and client C. Tell me everything so that we can exclude the possibility of a conflict. And in this review process, my source has told me that it's been clear. according to the judge. So is that it? I mean, Karen Northington, Ben Mogan, Corey Hathrock, all parents of the deceased victims in this case, all had Ann Taylor on their cases, right? So it is such a curious issue. What did she tell the judge? What did she lay out to the judge in order for the judge in this case to say, nothing to see here, no conflict problem? Did she see our interview? Did the judge see our interview with Ann Taylor's previous client, who she dropped on the very day she showed up in that courtroom with her brand new client, Brian Kohberger? Literally dropped her former client, Karen Northington, that's Xana Kernodle's mom, dropped her that day. And they were still active, like it was still an active pending case. By the way, Karen Northington had no idea that this had gone on. She had no notification of it, she told us. And did Ann Taylor know about the interview that we conducted on this program with Xana's mom, in which she laid out that she was gobsmacked by all of this, that she had no idea? Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation.
Okay, everybody, that's Banfield. This is a mess. As you hear Banfield speaking about cases being overturned, could this possibly be a reason that the case would get overturned after a verdict rendered in the case? Hopefully it won't go that far, but she's representing him. I'm going to bring you sources to show you why she is still involved in this case. This is just so crazy to me, because it's just a punch in the gut to these kids, also to the parents, because they are victims as well. Besides being defendants at one time, represented by Taylor, you know, that's the past, and Miss Kernodle, that was the present. She's gotten herself in some trouble. It's just, I can't even talk because I don't even understand how this is going on. This is savagery to me. And the thing that's crazy is that people in the judicial arena are always preaching to people about doing right, doing right. But we know that you wouldn't have a job if people were to do right. Let's just keep it real. Whether it's petty crimes or heinous crimes, felonies, misdemeanors, doesn't matter. Without people committing crimes, you wouldn't have a job. The judge doesn't have a job. The clerk doesn't have a job. The attorneys don't have a job. The lights don't stay on at the courthouse. Water bills, shuffling paperwork, copiers, so on and so forth. It's a business. And it's a business deriving from crime. Let's keep it real. And this is savagery to me, because I don't care if she is qualified, the only qualified person. She can't be the only qualified person because you had a Mr. Schwartz in her place after it got out about her representing these other parents. So where does he stand in this representation? Is he going to be seat number 1 or seat number 2? Or as they call it, seat A, seat B? Let me bring you some more information. Sorry, I'm a little congested today. Oh my goodness, this is just outrageous. News Nation is my second source. Sources close to the prosecution of Brian Kohberger told News Nation that his attorney had a private meeting with the judge and has been cleared of any conflict of interest concerns. Ann Taylor, chief of Kootenai County Public Defender's Office, previously represented 3 family members of 2 of the Kohberger's alleged victims before switching to take his case, according to court records. In the most recent case, drug charges were filed against Kara Northington, the mother of Xana Kernodle, on November 19th, 6 days after her daughter and 3 others were found dead inside an off-campus rental home. Kernodle, Madison Mogul, Kaylee Gonzalez, and Ethan Chapin were all stabbed to death in the early morning hours of November 13th. Gonzalez on Idaho suspect, Taylor withdrew from Northington's case January 5th, the same day Kohberger made his first court appearance in Moscow. Since Taylor took over the public defender's office in 2017, her office has defended Northington in 4 cases. Let me repeat that. Since Taylor took over the public defender's office in 2017, her office has defended Northington in 4 cases, and obviously she has a high position in this office. I am heartbroken because I trusted her. Taylor pretended that she was wanting to help me, and to find out that she's representing him, Kohberger. I can't even convey how betrayed I feel, Northington said during an appearance on News Nation's Banfield in January. Attorney Mark Garagos told News Nation host Ashley Banfield that Taylor shouldn't have been able to represent Kohberger without a waiver signed by the parents who were previously represented by her. When the lawyer and Taylor and the judge talked privately, I understand that. I've done that many times, Garagos said during the appearance on Banfield. I just don't think that there is any way possible that there isn't going to be a discussion of that house, the house of drugs, the use of drugs and people going in and out. I just find that entirely too hard to believe. News Nation also learned from someone close to the case that prosecutors support removing Taylor from the case. Latau County will pay Taylor $200 an hour for her standard work week, according to a recent report. Well, obviously she is, because that's why I'm bringing you these sources to verify her position on this case, in this case. $200 an hour. The exact amount is $180 an hour to the Kootenai County Defender's Office. Third source is Fox News. Idaho taxpayers will be on the hook for thousands of dollars toward the legal defense of accused killer Brian Kohberger, whose lead attorney is contracted to be paid $200 per hour to represent him, according to a local report. Ann Taylor is a public defender for Idaho's Kootenai County, but is being contracted to represent Kohberger in Latau County, where the Mouse Cow student slayings were carried out, because of her expertise in handling capital murder cases. As such, Latau County has agreed to pay Kootenai County officials $200 per hour for Taylor's services, with the expectation that she will be working 40 hours per week, local news station KREM2 reported. Latau County will pay Taylor directly for any overtime hours worked, though the hourly amount will remain the same, the report states. According to a document obtained by KREM via public records request, Latau County should pay Kootenai County $180 per hour for the second seat attorney, quote unquote. Assuming he or she works a 40-hour work week, Latau County should pay $180 per hour directly to the secondary attorney for any overtime worked, the document states. Meanwhile, any investigators working on behalf of Kohberger's defense team will be paid $45 an hour. An attorney will be compensated for food, lodging, and mileage, the report states. Once again, any investigators working on behalf of Kohberger's defense team will be paid $45 an hour. An attorney will be compensated for food, lodging, and mileage. Interesting. So I guess they have to come out of pocket for, what does it say here? Food, lodging, and mileage. Well, that's money when you're driving hours down the highway. One moment, please. Sorry about that. How is it that Taylor is working on this case? This is baffling to me. What did she say to the judge? And now the judge, you're just as roped in this mess as Taylor. You're roped in. because now you are the judge officiating, the current judge officiating this case. And so I'm assuming that everybody involved, as far as the parents of the victims, prosecuting office, the community, anyone with a pulse that actually cares for the children, are baffled and just utterly disturbed. You're the judge. So people are going to be looking at you side-eyed now, because they are going to wonder, what did she say to you in a meeting to say, this is why I should be able to represent Brian C. Kohberger? Well, what did she say? And why did you agree? I'm sure Kara is beside herself, despite all the things she's gotten herself into as of late. And the other parents, Mr. Mogan and his wife, have not heard anything from them recently. How do the other parents feel, knowing of these parents' arrest, their dealings with Taylor, and now Taylor has been cleared by the judge to resume representation for Kohberger? And she knew of Kara. There's no way she didn't, because Idaho is a small state, and I doubt that there were 15 or 16 other Kara Northingtons running around getting in trouble with the law and entering into her public defender's office. And the fact that you never said anything to Kara to give an explanation, how I will not be representing you, I will be passing your case to somebody else, even if you never told her why, she was going to find out. Yeah, $8,000 a week, almost $8,000 a week, $180 an hour to this public defender's office, to the second seat. That's a lot of money. And then you have to count how long it's going to take to represent him up until trial, how long it takes for the trial. Somebody's going to be a very wealthy person just working as a damn public defender. Stay woke. That's why the hell she wanted it. Now that we see how much it costs, hell yeah, I'll drop you. So maybe this was what we thought in the beginning. She was self-serving, Miss Taylor. But as I said, you never said anything to Kara. So I'd like to know the legalities of speaking to a client to tell them they won't be representing them, and why not. Now, one could say legally, because I don't know, you're obligated to tell a person why. I think in this circumstance, you should be legally bound to say why not. I can't represent you because I'm the only qualified or the best qualified in the state to represent a murder, a death penalty case, which this one may be, and it happens to be the man who allegedly murdered your child. That would be an interesting conversation, would it not? Just imagine that. Hey, Miss Kara, I want to talk to you for a second. Got to tell you something. What did you say? You're representing who? How could you? And I'm going to ask you. I understand this is a business, as I keep telling everybody. The courthouse is a business. And that's what this is. At the expense of 4 brutally murdered kids. Checkmate. I need this because it's big money. I need this, honey. I need this check. I need the money. I'm going to be reimbursed for my mileage, my food, my lodging. Investigators only making $45 an hour, which most people would be glad to get that. The average American doesn't even make $45 an hour, $20 an hour. Let's keep it real. The defense teams, investigators, people don't even make $15 an hour. Hello, Becker. Thank you for joining. But 180 is a whopper versus 45 an hour. So what was said to the judge? Why did the judge sign off? Why didn't the judge find somebody else from the state of Idaho? Because now that we know they have to make arrangements for their lodging, their food, so on and so forth, reimburse means I'll pay you back. So that means these people have to come out of pocket and pay for lodging, food, and that can be expensive too. I think most of us know paying for a hotel 7 days a week, week for week, month to month is expensive. Eating out is expensive. And then they're going to have to drive. You know, it depends on where they're going to do this duck, duck, goose scenario here. Moscow County, don't know how many hours it is away from their jurisdiction. So I'm assuming they would, I don't know, get a hotel there in Moscow County. I mean, in Moscow, the surrounding county, Latau County, I don't know. A lot of questions. Because driving up and down the highway, that's not going to work. Long hours in the courtroom and then driving somewhere else up the highway to your house and then back down the highway. Anything can happen, you know, when you're traveling up and down the highway. Not that I care and not that these victims' families members are going to care or the prosecutor. But you understand what I'm saying. How's this going to work out? And how did it come to be? So we've got Kohberger now getting to schnoozle with a blonde-haired lady, woman hater. Imagine that. Sitting beside a woman in court after he just slaughtered 3 women. A beautiful-looking judge with dark hair, long hair, sitting before him, also holding his fate. I want you to think about what I just said. Blonde-haired lady representing you after you just slaughtered 3 women. Obviously don't like women. You like them, but you can't. You can't deal with them because they don't like you. But you're grouping all women the same, so that's why you lashed out at these 3 kids and their friend Ethan. And then we've got a long-haired lady, dark hair, as the judge. You can't make this stuff up. This case is atrocious to me. But this is what happens with true crime, you see. Anything is liable to pop off in a true crime case. You're going to hear stories of people, the victims' past, entanglements, their family members' entanglements, criminal records, misdeeds in the prosecutor office or defense office. There's going to always be some negativity dealing with a case. Detectives, who did what, didn't do what, who's a rogue cop, who did this. So that should be next on the agenda for the Idaho 4. Next, we're going to hear improprieties of a detective, or detectives, or the prosecutor. Now, I'm not trying to be funny, but you're going to hear something. Somebody likes wearing women's underwear. They dress up in women's clothes or underwear. I'm not trying to be funny, but hey, why not? Because this is already ugly with different people running to News Nation, giving information about the victims, how they looked after death. Seeing Kohberger walk by, now he's a party goer, allegedly, by a source. One of the roommates not being that traumatized, but yet all these people end up in the house with a bunch of dead people, getting information on who discovered Ethan and Xana, but we hear nothing about who discovered Kaylee and Maddie, which is very strange to me. Banfield, if you need a source, please check out that last video. In the queue that I made pertaining to the discovery of the bodies, Ethan's best friend found he and Xana, but no mention of that same person finding Kaylee and Maddie. Okay? Sources came out earlier, a few weeks ago, about the DM, IG. that he was messaging them. Kohberger, one of the girls. But we don't get information to who that victim was. We also heard that the girl didn't respond. So you have information about Kohberger stalking the girls in the DM, following them on IG, information about where bodies were found, who found them now, information that a source has brought forward pertaining to DM not being traumatized, allegedly, thinking that he was a party goer, yelling now. We get that new information that she yelled at the girls to cut it out, but that wasn't mentioned in the affidavit. So what's next? Who are these sources running to News Nation? And why are you all speaking and there's a gag order? Because as I said in my previous video, when it is time for you to testify in court, I pray that all of you have the same identical story and version. Because the defense is going to shred you to pieces. And God forbid that one of the sources that's been running to News Nation is going to be on the witness stand. Imagine that. Just imagine that. Yeah, she said, and he said, and I saw, and blah, blah, blah. And it don't add up to all the people that were standing around in that house while these people were lying dead, which is even more baffling. Because the more I think about this information, the more I realize there's something wrong with these kids. I don't care what anybody says. This is my opinion. There's something wrong with you all. Because I'm not standing around no damn house with no dead kids in there. See, you all are giving people stuff to run with, to speculate, to hype up. Because if we don't hear that you didn't run out of that house after finding Ethan and Xana, it's going to be a problem. And as I said, the defense is going to shred you to pieces. Because they're going to ask all the pertinent questions the Queen has asked. Well, why didn't you find the other two girls? How long were you in there? Did you administer CPR? Did you take a pulse of the victims? Where was your cell phone at, sir? Why are you using her cell phone, sir? What did you do after you made the 911 call? Okay. Did you touch anything, sir? Did you remove anything, sir? Did you stay in the house, sir? You see where I'm going with this? This is a dirty, dirty case. And sadly, it's at the expense of 4 kids. Youthful, going to school, having fun, trying to live. One was coming out of school to go work out of town, and all that taken away by this alleged person, Mr. Kohberger. And now we have all this dirty stuff coming out about parents being on drugs, old cases, new cases, lawyer dropping the woman and not even telling her, Miss Northington, to take this case, possible death penalty case of Mr. Kohberger, now being cleared by the same damn judge that's going to be officiating the case. People running the News Nation with this, and this. No verification of what is true or not. Some guy running around speaking as if he's rooting for Dylan Mortensen, which is even more baffling. But what no one has prepared for is the inevitable. Sitting on the witness stand and answering questions truthfully, one by one. And I want to say this to Ms. Taylor before I check out of here. I do believe you're self-serving. I'm not going to believe this garbage about so many people in the state that know how to represent death penalty cases. We've seen the list. It's about a total of 14 individuals in the entire state. So we have to ask ourselves, why were you chosen? And you just so happen to have represented previous parents of the dead kids, which is very strange to me. And as you heard in these articles and Banfield, how is it not going to be a conflict down the road when it's time to go to court? Because we don't know who's going to be called in to testify pertaining to the children. And you've represented 3 of the parents of the dead kids. But you don't care. Because this is your shining, glorified moment to get your nice lump sum of money in your pocketbook at the expense of 4 dead kids. So I want to ask you, how do you feel right now? I'm just saying. Because like I tell everybody, this is a business, the court system. This is a business. This is no different than Macy's, Burger King. It's all the same. How do you feel knowing one of the mothers is still out there, active drug user, I would assume, wayward, lost, child murdered? You've represented her or your office in 4 cases. And you took on her case knowing who she was at some point and who the defendant was. And you never said a damn word to her, Karen Northington, because you didn't give a damn. And I bet to this day you have not called that woman to apologize in knowing who she is and Kohberger. Why not? Because she hasn't gone to News Nation to say, oh yeah, by the way, she called me, they called me to apologize. How do you sleep with yourself? That's what I want to know. How do you walk around knowing you knew who she was? There's no way I'm going to believe when the information came out about the parents, you didn't hear her name. Because Idaho's a small state. You knew that this was a death penalty state after hearing that he murdered these kids once he got arrested. And even before he was even arrested, it was the talk of the town. It's still the talk of the town. So there's no way you're going to say, I didn't know Northington was Xana's mom. I don't believe that. Even before Kohberger even got arrested. You knew that 9 times out of 10, they were going to have to hire somebody to represent this thing, whoever he was. You knew of this woman having these cases, drug cases. And you knew she was the mother of one of the victims. There's no way you're going to tell me you didn't know. Because you had ample enough time just to know, oh, we've got a client that's one of the victim's parents. Oh, parents. But let's not leave out the other 2. Let's not leave out the other 2. So parents, plural. Oh my goodness. We just may have to take this case, get this case, but we're also representing one of the parents. Oh, we've also represented other parents. So you had to have known of all those parents' names, whether you had gotten the case or not. And you dropping the lady the same day you get Kohberger is ridiculous to me. Because they had already contacted you, from my understanding, when he got arrested in Pennsylvania. He hadn't even made it back to Idaho yet. So you had to have been contacted by the state or however that works. So you had to have known about Kara days or so before. I'd say way before. But you don't feel obligated to tell that. I think you did this as a boost to your career and your pocketbook, and you're shameful to me. Because whether you word it how you want, fancy wordings, legal jargon, oh, they chose our office, blah, 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 you still can't explain the dropping of Kara the same day representing Kohberger. You knew who she was before Kohberger was even named as a suspect. That's number 1. And when you found out that they wanted your office to represent Kohberger, that was when you should have been a human being and declined. But you didn't care. You never said a word and secretly dropped that lady and then came forward as the public defender for Brian C. Kohberger. And to this day, not you or anyone from that public defender's office has publicly apologized to Kara and also the other kids' parents. And I don't want to leave them out, but Kara was the one that stuck out the most because of the current charges, her having current case with the public defender's office. But nonetheless, the Mogans and Miss Northington, previous cases, current cases with your public defender's office. And at some point you knew all of this, all parents' names, that they were the parents of the victims, and that you had a current case with Miss Kara. And you have yet, you or your office, to apologize to these parents. And now, as it stands from the sources I brought today, you will be representing Brian C. Kohberger at a whopping $180 an hour. This is despicable. And I don't even know why they met with the judge. For what? Because she's okayed it. And I'm looking at her sideways right now. And I'm sure the children's parents are as well, and the community. And who gets the brunt of this fiasco? The taxpayers of Idaho. People who are probably not very wealthy, regular people with regular jobs, just trying to make a living. And now they're having to pay all this damn money for this monster to get representation, which is the law, and pay you all a big hefty fee for representation. Not really fair when you consider what he did to those 4 kids. Not fair to Kara and the other parents. But as they say, this is business. So much for justice. Right fighting. Hey, stay out of trouble. See, they don't want you to stay out of trouble because staying out of trouble means I don't eat. Checkmate. Yeah, break the law. I get a nice little fee in my pocketbook. I get my name out there in the general public. And as everyone is saying, some of you, everybody will be writing a book when this is all over. Everybody will be talking when there's a gag order lifted. Everybody will be on every news program from A&E to CBS to Oxygen to Netflix. Somebody will want to make a movie. It'll go on and on and on. And this story will be like most stories pertaining to mass shooters, serial killers. It'll just multiply itself. It'll be a story that people will always talk about. And sadly, it'll be about the killer. And that's why a lot of people become offended when stories, documentaries keep going on and on year for year about the killer, because it's now covering up the victims. But people are fascinated with true crime and why the person did it, their lifestyle, how they were raised, what led them down this path. And Kohberger will be no different, sadly. People are curious to why he did this, how he came to be this monster, when he became this monster, when did he become this killing machine, and did someone see the signs? But in the end, he's an adult, like all the other adults who have brutally murdered people. You have no control over a person's actions. You have no control over telling a person he or she needs to become medicated, take their medicine, see a psychiatrist, a counselor. They are grown. Because people say that often. Didn't you see the signs? Didn't you see the signs? Sure they did. I'm sure many people saw something wrong, but you don't assume a person's going to go out and butcher people, stalk people, lie in wait, break in their house, kill them. And sadly, this goes on every day. Every day you look on the news, somebody's being hurt, harmed, killed, murdered, stalked. Yeah, they were quirky, had odd ways, talked strange, but you didn't say, yeah, that's a killer. Until it's too late and they've murdered people. Then you go back in time, hindsight, and say, yeah, I saw something was a bit off with him or her. And that's what you have here, once again. This is the ultimate punch to the gut, the ultimate diss to the Idaho 4 students. Disrespect to them, taxpayers, the parents, the community. It's disrespectful to them. But it's also business. And somehow the judicial system says it's okay for Ms. Taylor to represent Brian C. Kohberger. I don't know legal wranglings to say what is appropriate and what is legal. But the judge says she's cleared. And all I can say for the people who have been coming out, bringing out information about the children and Kohberger's relation to the children, whatever was seen in the house, versions of what was seen in the house, what was done in the house, it's only going to be a matter of time that there's going to be more things that's going to come out. And the next thing I'm waiting to hear is, what did Miss Dillon do, she and Bethany, when they got up? Are we now going to get a source pertaining to that information? Are you going to now finally tell us what time she woke up and what did she do when she woke up? Did she call Bethany? Has she already called her through the night? Did she get up and leave her room? Never said anything. What time did she come out of her room? Did somebody come in first to the house in an unlocked door, the slider? And then she came out and met them and realized, ooh, something's not right here. Because there's a lot of chatter. And there's a gag order. And you all have no respect for these kids by talking to the news and other entities when you know you may be called as a witness in court. And what also struck me is, could this be a source that wasn't in the house? Wasn't one of the kids called over, but somebody close to one of the kids, DM or Bethany, and they're putting all this drama out here to stir the pot for whatever reason, sick reason. But no matter who the source or sources are, you are now causing a problem that later may be beneficial to Brian Kohberger. And if you don't understand that, then you have a long road ahead of you. And that means you're just as sick as Kohberger, but you don't have any empathy. You see, I've brought you information pertaining to empathy. A psychopath is not necessarily a killer. A killer is not necessarily a psychopath. A sociopath is not necessarily a killer. And a killer is not necessarily a sociopath. But a sociopath and a psychopath can become a killer. So you all think about that in watching the behaviors of people who act like they care about the victims. Because you may not be arrested for murdering 4 students, but your behavior is mimicking that of a sociopath or a psychopath. You're just walking around free. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $sign Big Angie, 129 Cash App, all stickers and chats are welcome during the live stream. Have a safe weekend. I'll be back later with a very diabolical story out of the metro Atlanta area pertaining to a road cop who's been arrested. Prayers to the families in Moscow, jurisdictions, the communities, Washington State University, and the University of Idaho. There comes a time when you have to know your place. You have to say to yourself that, well, what I'm doing is not right. What I am doing is wrong, and there may be repercussions from what I am doing, what I want to do. And all these people coming out, whoever they are, I don't know if they're the same person or not, speaking about this case, we know it has to be different sources because I don't think many people knew who was in these kids' DM, who was following him. That would be an investigator. So that means an investigator has leaked out information. And then whoever was in that house on the 13th or knew of the young people or know them, they're leaking out information, or it's them, whomever. So I think we have different people spewing out stuff that they shouldn't be. And I think you all are going to see that you've made a very grave mistake, that you have harmed those kids' chances of getting justice. And it would be a shame that Kohberger gets off because of your meddling and wanting 5 minutes of fame. Thank you for your time. You have been listening to the Vault XL.